Final class is with best-selling cookbook author Rose Levy Beranbaum, who's making banana split pie.
I'm making a banana split pie. I love banana splits so much with all the ooey gooey caramel and the chocolate fudge and bananas and toasted walnuts and whipped cream. I thought, wouldn't it be terrific to do as a pie? So we're going to be doing this today, and it's a very simple thing. It just has a few steps, and it's a fabulous thing for entertaining because you can make it a week ahead, feeds lots of people, and everybody loves banana split. We start by slicing the bananas on the bias slightly, putting them in a bowl, and then letting them macerate. That means that they're going to soak in crème de banane, which is a liqueur, and lemon juice. And that's going to keep them from discoloring, but it's also going to keep them soft when they're frozen. So it's never like biting into an icy cold banana. And then we take these bananas that have been macerating, and we drain them, because we don't want to have too much liquid in with the ice cream. We're going to use some of this macerating liquid to add to the whipped cream, which does the same thing. It keeps the whipped cream from getting too icy when it gets frozen, for the decoration on the top. The next step is that we're going to make the crust. And we're just going to combine all the ingredients except for the butter. And that's vanilla wafers, walnuts, because they go so wonderfully with the banana, and caramel and hot fudge, a little bit of sugar, a little bit of salt, and optional cinnamon. And now it's going to get processed until it's fine crumbs before adding the butter. It only takes a few seconds. And now, with the processor off, add the butter and just pulse it in until it's evenly mixed and looks like it's been slightly moistened. And as soon as it looks like it's been moistened, just take it out and dump it, oh, and it smells so good. Dump it into the pan. And I start by using my fingers to press it in, but I want a nice even layer because when I cut into it, I don't want a heavy bottom. And the way I get it up against the sides is I use a straight edge cup or even this canister that I'm going to be using later for the fudge and the caramel to just press it up in there. It goes really easily, but rather than taking the time to do this now, I'm going to show you one that has already been finished and put in the freezer. So this is my finished crust, and now that it's ready to be filled, I'm going to make the caramel. This is bourbon butterscotch caramel, and the reason it's called that is because I use turbinado sugar or unrefined sugar. And I start with water to help it dissolve. But the secret here to keep it from crystallizing is to add a little bit of cream of tartar, which is an acid, and a little bit of corn syrup. And that helps to keep it from crystallizing even after the caramel is made, because I've worked it out so the consistency of this caramel, even at room temperature, is nice and thick, so it can pipe beautifully. And once it's on the pie and it's frozen, because it has a high sugar content, caramel is sugar, it's going to stay chewy, so it won't crack like a hard candy. So I want to let this come up to about 370 degrees. The way you can tell when the caramel has reached the right temperature is by using a white surface so that you can see the actual color of the caramel against it. Then you don't need to use a thermometer. So don't stir while it's bubbling, except for very gently. But now you can see that color against the white is nice and amber. And I've turned off the heat so that I can add the cream, preferably not cold or it will really bubble up. I like using a ladle because that way I can keep my distance from it. And because I turned off the heat, luckily it's not fizzling too much. And I just want to stir it together until it's uniform, and then I'll remove it from the heat. And now we can turn off the heat, add the butter, and stir that in until it's completely uniform. And because the caramel is so hot already, it doesn't take long for the butter to melt. Now let it cool for about 10 minutes before adding the vanilla and the bourbon, because they're volatile and they're going to evaporate if the caramel is still too hot. And now that it's cool, I'm going to add the bourbon and the vanilla, and then let it cool until it comes completely to room temperature, or when it's just barely warm, it can be poured into this dispenser, which is a really easy way to decorate rather than using a pastry bag. And when it's cooling, every once in a while, stir slightly so you can get it to be uniform. And that's the bourbon butterscotch caramel, which I'm now using to lace over the top of my pie crust. About a quarter of a cup. And then half of the bananas now into the bottom. And then top with a quarter of a cup of the nuts. And allow the ice cream to get really soft and soupy, because that way you can pour it easily right over the top of all these great things. And I fill it about half full, so that's about half the ice cream. If it's a little more that got in, I can just take it out. Now, using an offset spatula, this is perfectly soupy but still frozen. Spread the ice cream around. Now this is going to go into the freezer so that it will be solid. And here's one, thank you, that was sitting in the freezer so that you can see the top is really firm. I'm going to scatter another 1/4 cup of the nuts and the rest of the bananas. And now, just finish off with the rest of the ice cream. And I'm going to spread it even with the top. Don't allow the ice cream to turn into a sauce, because then when it refreezes, it tends to be crystalline. And just, sort of soupy melted is fine like this. It doesn't have to cover every last bit of the banana. Now it needs to be frozen solid before being decorated for at least 3 hours.